Good day and welcome to the Frontline Chatter podcast, brought to you by the World of EUC. My name is Jarian Gibson, your host, and I am back with my two co-hosts today, Stephen Wagner and Sean Massey. How you doing today, Stephen?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. It's a holiday week. Things are winding down for the year. Ready to talk about our today's topic. How about you, Sean?
I'm doing great. Like you said, it's a short holiday week, and we get to end this week off with a ton of food.
Ton of food is right, and everyone just get through it and make sure you don't overindulge, but have a good time. Today's topic, though, we are here to talk about EUC World independence, and along with myself and my two fellow board members, Stephen and Sean, we have two customer attendees on as well. And being these are Stephen's customers, how about you introduce them, Stephen?
Well, actually, one's a customer. That would be Neil Chester. I was lucky enough to convince him to join us for EUC World. And then we also have Daniel Keer, who's a professional in the IT space who's got a whole bunch of experience with different platforms. Neil, I'll let you start, and then if you guys want, you can just do a quick introduction about yourself.
Okay. I'm Neil Chester. I've been working in IT space for a very decent amount of time now. Probably like 7 years full time in IT, 8 years maybe. Been with the company I've been with for 17 years. Been growing that, so it's been fun.
Yeah, I am Daniel Keer. Been working in IT for a very long time, and yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Well, thanks for coming on and joining us today. We're pretty much just a month out or after EUC World Independence, and that was October 22nd and 23rd, right dates, in Silver Spring, Maryland. It was our inaugural yearly conference. So let's kind of go around the room here. The old randomizer is going to pick Neil. So Neil, what were your thoughts of the 2-day event in Silver Spring, Maryland?
I really enjoyed myself. I've been to a few conferences at this point, and this one by far I think was the most engaging and welcoming the experience I've had. It also, from a size perspective, felt more. You didn't feel like one of many individuals in a room. You felt like you could actually engage with everybody there. I had a lot of really good conversations. It was really enjoyable.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was very, for kind of context, earlier this year I went to another larger tech conference, which was kind of like the first real tech conference that I've been to. And this one was smaller, but like it felt good, the fact that it was smaller, because like as Neil was saying, you could just like walk up to anyone, and it felt like way more intimate, way more like connected. It was less like, oh, can I talk to this person? No, it's just like you can just talk to whoever, and it just felt very cool. I thought it was weird that it was like at a theater, but then as you thought about it, it kind of made sense, because like theaters already have projectors and like everything. The only thing you got to bring is yourself and your PowerPoint slides. So it kind of makes sense when you start to think about it. I thought it was great.
How about you, Stephen? What are your thoughts?
I have so much to say. But first and foremost, I have to say thank you to two different groups. One is the community, because all of this wouldn't have been possible without the outpouring support of those who have signed up for World of EUC and also registered to attend the EUC World Conference event. We had such little time to organize this that everything came together perfect. The people came out. The vibe was amazing. The energy. When Daniel and I flew in, we were having issues and delays with our flights. We were exhausted. But as soon as we got to the hotel, like just walking into the hotel and seeing everyone and the energy, it was recharging. The two different venues were amazing. I was a little bit hesitant on the vibe from having it in the theater, but on day one, it was just the coolest thing ever for the presentations and the style of the event. And the swap up on day two was perfect as well. Now, the second thank you goes out to our sponsors. I can't forget them at all, because they're the ones that team up with the community and make this happen. So I have to put in a mention. Our premier sponsors, Liquidware, Nerdio, NVIDIA, and Omnissa. Thank you. And then our other sponsors, Tenzig, Aporto, Citrix Control Up, Stratadesk, Sonnet.io, iGel, and Goliath. Thank you for sponsoring this. It was just, it went off way better than I could have imagined, and I can't wait to do it again if we do. Wink.
Wink, wink. And what are your thoughts, Sean?
Well, I don't know if I can really top what Steven said, so I'm just going to second what he said, right? First, thank you to our sponsors, and Steven named them all. Thank you to everyone from the community who attended, who made this possible. But, I haven't been to a conference in over a year. My last one was VM World 2023. And no, don't correct me on that one. It will always be VM World. And, that was kind of like you could kind of see the writing on the wall where things were going. So it was really great to be in person talking with like-minded EUC professionals. The venue was amazing. The vibe was amazing, like Steven said. We had great keynotes. Thanks to Brian Madden, Gabe Knuth, and Sean Bass for, joining to kind of kick off this inaugural event. And just a great set of community members who came to present or join in the unconference and network. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just for myself too, thank you again, to our sponsors, to all the support, to the community, to the speakers, especially to our keynotes. We did that kind of passing the torch from kind of the days of Bri Forum into EUC World, and so it was great to have them there, great to have their support, and looking forward to where we go to the future. Also, thanks to Steve Greenberg as well. We had that unconf portion the second day at the hotel. Felt that ran really well also. So thank you for that. And just thank you to everyone that came and helped make it happen. I do agree. I do like kind of the smaller vibe and being that EUC focused. In the past couple of years, I've primarily only been to Microsoft Ignite or Nutanix.next, which are both a lot bigger conferences. And they're more not as focused on EUC like this event was. So I was happy to be again at a EUC focused event and being around just the EUC community, which, we kind of had a fast ramp up to EUC World Independence. We just started World of EUC, March of this year, after some conversations in the shadows between, Stephen, myself, Sean, Patrick, and Jana, and along with Engage, our management team. So it was good to not only get the World of EUC kicked off in March of this year, but then also to be able to have EUC World Independence in just a few months. So with that being said, besides like the venue or just the community stuff, did anything else stand out to you guys session wise, conversation wise, or vendor wise? And this time I'll start off with Sean.
So, yeah, a couple things stood out. First off, between vendors, we had a lot of discussion around like application layering and application delivery. And it was great to not only have a deep dive session put on by Jeff Ulatowski of Omnissa, but then also to kind of have more of a vendor neutral discussion around it as well. Diving into the technology and how it works and all that. Also, there was a lot of talk about AI. There was Brian's keynote touched on it a little bit, and then we had the unconference session about AI. We had NVIDIA there talking a little bit about AI. And, I think this is going to be a really exciting space for EUC going forward. Not only did we have those great sessions, but Stephen and I have had some conversations too on how to follow up on that unconference session and, where EUC and AI overlap. And, there's I think more to come in that space.
How about you, Neil? We'll go with you next.
Yeah. So for me, I thought like overall the community was really just welcoming there, especially for me being, first time that I've gone to one of these more focused in the EUC space. I loved it. It was awesome. And the other thing that comes to mind is I really like the unconference. I was a little bit skeptical at first. I was like, I don't know about that, but give it a try. Let's see what it's like. But I really liked how the conversations evolved, and so we were really able to just talk things to a more complete completion, and it was kind of more in the moment, kind of where's the conversation going, instead of it being more structured and, hey, these are the talking points that I'm going to follow, and this is where we're going to focus our attention on, which I really liked. Actually, I thought it went really well.
Steven?
So the first big thing was just seeing the community come together. And I know that we as in World of EUC, we've been talking about everything that's been going on for the last couple of years and a little bit about the buzzkill, but to get everyone together in person, face to face, and to see people coming together to share knowledge, share stories, share friendships, that was just huge. It was a total success. Now, when we actually start getting into talking about the technology and one of the reasons why we were all there, it was just amazing. We had product managers from a whole bunch of different vendors. We had a whole bunch of different vendors there. You essentially had people that were leading our industry all in one room where you could get FaceTime with them, ask them questions. You could talk to customers about the problems that they're having. You can talk to the consultants about the problems that they're solving or the problems that they're running into. And then finally, you have access to the product teams where there was a lot of stuff that was getting shared that isn't necessarily public. And this is why you come to these conferences, is to learn about what's going on with the products, future roadmaps, things that everything's working on, especially right now with all the changes that are happening with the big vendors. It's to get this FaceTime, you can find out about where these products, these solutions, and these technologies are going, and you can have fun while doing it. And so there was a whole bunch of amazing conversations going on, sharing of knowledge, ideas, and new friendships, right, that are going to last forever.
Yep. Daniel?
I thought one of the most interesting talks, panels, whatever roundtables that you want to call it, was on the unconference day, when I don't even know if it was an official one, where it was just kind of everyone kind of got together and talked about their home labs. And I thought that was really cool, just seeing everyone's different perspectives on just all of that. And the other thing that kind of made it really unique was that in the evenings, if you just went to the bar in the hotel, you would find so many different vendors and just anyone. Most people were there. You could just have conversations about anything and everything. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was our rogue on conf session about home labs, where we just took over the dining area where we had breakfast and lunches at. So that was a good conversation. I did echo about the AI stuff. Brian's keynote, the opening conversation for the unconf between Brian and Sean and Gabe, and then also to the unconf session as well. But also, you mentioned a good one, Stephen, about the application piece of it. Was that Stephen or Sean mentioned it, I think?
Yep.
About the application piece of it, where we had Jason from Liquidware, we had Jeff from Omnissa, and Tim Mangan all collaborating, not just in the unconf session, but in their official session as well. We kind of had that application layering panel, and what's nice to see is that while everyone has their own products and solutions, it's still a community. We're all working together for a common goal for the end users out there. So it was good to see their different aspects of applications and application layering and the tool sets they have in their products. And then what Daniel said too, the bar at nighttime, just having getting people together, having those conversations. I know there was a couple dinners too as well. I think I popped up at one with a couple of you. It was a couple split tables as well, but just getting that community together and having those community conversations again, seeing some old faces, making acquaintance with some new faces. It was my first time meeting Neil and Daniel, so that was good to meet you all. And just hearing about your and Steven's travels coming into the event. So I think we'll go with that one next is, how was the location and how was getting there? And I'll start with Daniel this time since you had the most fun getting to the event and probably the longest commute.
Well, I don't travel too much, so to me, there was a connecting flight, but I feel like that's kind of normal. But the morning started off with getting a text from Air Canada being like, "Hey, by the way, your flight is delayed by like 2 hours," and we had like a 90-minute window to connect because we were going Calgary to Toronto, Toronto to Washington. But then the issue was that our connecting flight, the connection was only like 90 minutes. Our flight's already delayed by 2 hours. So fortunately, I was traveling with Steven, who's an expert in dealing with flight delays. So we went to the airport ahead of time, and Air Canada was great and was able to just rebook us on a different flight. So we went Calgary to Montreal, then Montreal to Washington. And then I think by the time we got into Washington and at the hotel, because I guess there's no airports in Silver Spring, and you have to so we had to Uber from Washington airport thing to Silver Spring, and then by the time we actually walked in the hotel doors, it was like 11, and there was still people at the bar hanging out, and yeah, getting back wasn't too bad. I think we did fail to calculate rush hour traffic being a thing going back, getting to the airport from Silver Spring, and then the flight back was kind of unadventurous, except for the fact that I got to fly business class, which was super fancy, and I've never done that before. And yeah, I don't really have any strong opinions of the location. Like, if you ask me where to put it, I wouldn't have an answer because I don't know. Put it in Canada.
And just so everyone knows, because Neil, you're US based, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just everyone knows, Stephen and Daniel were two of our international attendees coming from Canada. We had a couple come from Europe as well. Mainly US focused attendees, but glad to have our international attendees as well. And with that, Neil, how was your travel in, and what were your thoughts of the location?
It was so smooth. It was an hour and 20-minute flight from Raleigh, Durham, right into DCA. It was super easy. Got off the plane, took an Uber over, and then hit the bar. And it was super easy. Yeah. I think the location was great, honestly. I went back and actually listened to your previous podcast so I get an idea of what to expect. And you mentioned that part of the reason why you picked that location was travel affordability. And I would say I could definitely see that when I was booking my trip.
Yeah, two things was one was travel affordability in the DC or DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area.
Yeah.
You kind of had those three big airports there, DCA, Dulles, and in Baltimore. So you kind of had your easy pick there of flying in. And that's one thing we always keep in mind going forward is accessibility for easy travel. And with that, I'll go to Stephen next because he was also on the fun journey with Daniel as well.
Yeah, so we Daniel summed it up pretty good. It was a little challenging. It was a little hectic at times, especially, first thing in the morning, I'm texting him saying, "Get to the airport right now. We got to go." So, but thankfully we made it on time, and the venue. I wasn't too sure what to expect, but it was just great. Like I said, we walked in the front door of the hotel. You could see everyone at the bar. I had to run down to the front desk at 2:30 in the morning for something. People were still down there catching up because they haven't seen each other for 6 to 12 months. Neil was one of them. I think John Tolles yanked the jukebox out, got it plugged in at Hal Lauren at Jarian in the earring. So
Connected and not working. And he was like, "Oh, I can fix this."
Yep. So it was just good. I was very pleasantly surprised with the layout of everything, the two different venues, and thankfully it was a nice, comfortable journey back home. So,
how about you, Sean?
So for me, almost every flight has a connection, so it wasn't too bad. I'm used to that by now. DC was a great place to have it because of that affordability. I think every location, every city has its pluses and minuses, and DC having multiple airports is a plus, but being also an older East Coast city means that it's not always easy to get from the airport to wherever you're going. But this wasn't terrible because usually you kind of know that going into DC, so you can plan accordingly to make sure you can get to the airport from from the airport to wherever you're going, and vice versa. Um, so the venue itself was great. The area we had it in was great. Um, the movie theater was definitely unique because it's not the type of place you think of for a conference. Usually you think of a hotel or a convention center. So having it at the theater was definitely memorable. Um, and I think the area around Silver Spring was also good because you had a lot of restaurants, you had a lot of bars, you weren't confined to the hotel. It's not like Vegas where you could walk like from one end of the strip to the other without going outside at all. So there were a lot of pluses to the location.
Yeah, I would agree as well. And I know with like Case and Sven, who came from Netherlands in for the event, two of our speakers, I believe they were able to fly directly into DC with their flight. But then too, me being in Kansas City, you never know as far as direct flights. I can get lucky sometimes I can't. Nice thing here with our new airport, there's more direct flights. So mine was pretty easy, about 2.5 hours, I think, from Kansas City to DCA or Reagan DCA Reagan Airport, and then a quick ride over. And I like the area too as well. The day after the event, myself and Case went on like a 3-mile walk, just walked around the area. No really plans of destination, just he wanted to see the area, so we just went for a walk. And then him and Sven had till that evening the following day, so they went to DC and did some sightseeing as well. And I believe others took advantage of that also. So it's nice to have that kind of area where you can go in and see things. I think Jen and Patrick on our team, they went a day early and they were able to go around the DC Mall area as well. When you say DC Mall, it's not like a shopping mall. It's like the actual all the things around DC is called the DC Mall, like the museums and the monuments and that kind of stuff. So they were able to see that. And so that was pretty good to be able, for those who came in early or stayed late, to be able to do that. And then just, like I said, things in the area to do. I think at night you could just walk around the area and find different people at different restaurants close to the hotel. And the hotel was pretty nice and accommodating as well. They even let, what's his name? We were in the lab. Owen, yes, thank you. Owen Reynolds was able to, he travels with his dog all the time. And, we were able to get him to be able to bring his dog the second day at the Unconf instead of having to leave it at his Airbnb. So the hotel was pretty nice and accommodatable as well. So good time there.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Steven.
One other thing too, we heard the word affordability 2 or 3 times, and this is one thing that worked out really well because one of our focuses was to make this conference easy to attend. Whether you were getting your employer to cover the cost, we wanted to make it an easy sell for them, and there was actually probably a significant amount of people that self-funded their journeys to EUC World. And so it worked out perfectly as far as the airport location, the cost of the hotel, and the conference pass, where this was very easy for folks to take care of themselves or to sell it to upper management to cover the costs. So that was a big plus. And that's something I think if we do this again, it's probably a very important factor for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're definitely listening to the feedback. So hopefully Daniel and Neil filled out the feedback for the event. And those of you listening to this, if you haven't, I think you can still do so. I'll double check, but just try to see if you still can. But we're definitely taking in all that feedback into account as far as affordability, accessibility, location, and so forth. And I think we're safe to say, Stephen, not if, but when. We just can't say anything else past that yet. Right, Sean and Stephen?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm just saying when, that's all I'm going to say. So let's move on to the next thing. Let's get Neil's thoughts. Say 2026 comes around. 2025 comes around. I'm thinking 2 years in the future. 2025 comes around, and we're thinking about EUC World, and this year we called it Independence because we were just celebrating our independence, being a independent agnostic community. Next year we'll have a different tagline. It will still be EUC World, but it'll be called something else. Where are your thoughts on as far as location and timing, Neil?
Location and timing. So I'm pretty flexible when it comes to that personally. My schedule is pretty changeable. So for me, it's, as long as it's not near like a holiday, that's pretty much my restrictions. If it's going to be in a location, I think, or that the seasons need to be considered. Like I went to a conference that was in the dead of summer in Las Vegas. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. I don't want to do that again. But yeah, so I think, think about the weather conditions and where it's going to be at. I think I like the idea that, obviously I'd love for it to come to my area, but, I think everybody would feel that way. Basically, just travel so much easier.
Durham is nice. We actually have an office there
Yeah.
in Durham, so I've been there a couple times. So I do like Durham, and that could be something possibly in the future as a location. And I know East Coast makes it a lot easier for those international, especially across the pond, attendees that want to make a trip over. So
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of it being more, if it's not on the East Coast, it's closer to the East Coast than it is the West. Most of the conferences I've gone to take me to the West, and it's always a journey. Yeah.
what about you, Daniel?
Timing, I have no idea. I happen to double book myself all the time, so timing is just, it is what it is. In terms of location, I am curious if it makes sense to whatever the middle of the U.S. is, whatever those states are. If you picked that, if that makes things
Where I live.
well, that's basically what I'm getting at. Is if you pick the middle of the states, then maybe that's easier. I don't know. I defer to Steven. He travels more than I do, so I have no idea where to put it. But the bias in me is like, yeah, put it in Canada. But then now it's international for everyone in the U.S., and I'm assuming there's a lot more people in the U.S. that attended EUC World versus the Canadians.
So since we're deferring to Steven, what are your thoughts, Steven?
We always got to make sure that we keep it easy to fly into. Whether you're coming in internationally, the less flights, the better, the less potential problems. As far as the timing goes, pretty much anything goes. The biggest thing is that a lot of us that attend EUC World, we also attend a lot of other conferences. And so the hardest part is always fitting it in the conference schedule and also giving enough gaps so that we can work and put food on the table between all the different conferences. So I think we did really, really well this year. And so if we were to do this again, I think we should try to change it up a little bit. Maybe try for a different time of year, definitely a different location, something as cool or cooler. But yeah, as long as it doesn't fall on any major holiday, I think I'd be open to anything.
Sean?
I'm going to defer to Steven on this one. No, so all kidding aside, I think he makes a lot of really good points. Ease of travel, I think, is the biggest thing, right? And I'm going to categorize that with two things. One, the fewer number of flights it takes for people to get there, the better. The easier it is for international attendees to get there, the better. But also, ease isn't just the number of flights, it's also the cost of the flight. And flights can be very expensive if you don't live in a major city, right? Like RTP would count as a major city, I think, these days. But there's a lot of people who work in IT or who work in EUC who don't work in one of those major metro areas that have a large airport and, multiple airlines to choose from. So trying to keep that price down so they can attend is very good, because, you know, those are a lot of the people who, you know, they may go to 1 or 2 conferences a year, and it's a VM World or an Ignite or something really large. And, you know, you may get something good out of it, you may not. So by being an affordable conference, it makes it a lot more approachable. So
I have one more thing to add, actually, if I can.
I defer to Steven.
Personal preference. The one thing that I have with the personal preference is time zone friendliness. I cannot tell you. So I'm in Mountain Time. The majority of my customers are in Eastern Time, and I can't tell you how hectic it is when you wake up in Vegas for something like VMware Explore or any of the other conferences, and the people on the East Coast have been up and at it for hours. You're waking up to emergencies, and now you have to resolve those emergencies in your hotel room before you get breakfast and before you get to the conference. So as long as it's not in the Pacific time zone, I am happy.
No, and that's fine too. And usually anything Pacific West Coast is going to be more expensive, not just venue wise, but travel wise, and is getting there as well. And I did like Neil's points. You know, being able to the time of year, right? So we wouldn't want to come to see Sean in the middle of winter in Wisconsin because of the cold, or we want to go to Vegas in the middle of the summer because it's hot. You know, even I think a couple of years ago when Synergy was in, I think it was like one of the last Synergy events. I think it was the last one in Atlanta, and that was in May, and that was still muggy. You know, in May in Atlanta. So yeah, definitely looking at the seasons there. Definitely don't want to be around a holiday. You know, definitely want to make it most likely a major hub city. Because even if you're from a smaller area, it's still easier to get to the major hubs, which is going to help with number of hops, also affordability as well. So all those things are taken into account, and we're listening. You know, we're definitely listening and planning for the win for 2025.
Yeah. And one more thing to add to that real quick. You know, you said, you know, you don't want to go to Vegas in the summer. Well, I don't think you really want to go to Vegas at any time of the year. Just
Not
because
anymore.
it's Vegas.
Yes.
Most people have been
Yeah.
there for a conference at least once already.
Yep.
And that city is never quiet, right? There's always something going on there.
Yeah, I would actually say Vegas. I would stay away from that unless you can get some really good deal or something.
I try to avoid Vegas if I can, but I was there earlier this year for our GTS, our Global Tech Summit was in Vegas. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of Vegas. I try to avoid it if I can, but you can't always avoid it. But I know I can say definitely for the world of EUC, for any EUC World event, it will not be in Vegas. I can say that pretty confidently right now. Anytime we do another event, yeah, I can pretty much say that. So let's kind of wrap things down. You know, I enjoyed the feedback from Neil and Daniel today about their experience. You know, let's kind of go around the table and just get some closing thoughts. If you have anything else that we haven't discussed today about EUC World Independence, and I'll start with Daniel this time.
I really don't have much to add. It was great. It was, yeah, there's just really nothing really to add. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, if you ask me like ways that could be improved, I honestly can't think of any. It was a heck of a lot of fun.
That's great feedback. You know, we're doing something right. How about you, Neil?
Yeah, so I would like to just close up by saying thanks to you guys again. You know, this probably would not have happened if you guys didn't get together and go, we should do something. So really want to thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Yeah, overall, I thought the conference was great. I really look forward to going to another event. Hopefully that'll be soon.
Any closing thoughts, Sean?
So, you know, I have a few. And to start with, Neil, on your point about going to another event soon, One of the things we are looking for at World of EUC is to start spinning up local groups, right? Kind of take that CUCG, VMUG type experience and do something EUC focused. So, and this isn't directed specifically towards you, but to anybody who's listening, is if you want that, to kind of capture that lightning in a bottle of the conference, or create that local community experience, we are looking for leaders. We are looking to set up local groups. So reach out to us reach out to our HQ at worldofeuc.org, and ask about becoming a local leader, setting up a group in your area, because we want to extend this, right? This can't just be a once a year thing. If and or when we have another EUC World event, be sure to submit to the call for papers, right? A community-led conference doesn't work without community speakers. And, I'm going to challenge both Daniel and Neil to submit to the call for papers, because from the conversations we had, there's things that you guys could get up on stage and share. And, it's great to hear from new community voices sharing knowledge. I think we had a great slate of speakers this year. We had I would almost say an all-star slate of speakers, but we also need new voices and new people to share things. And I think this is one area where anybody can step up. And finally, one of the big pieces of feedback we heard is, it was, we wish it was longer. And so I'm going to ask Daniel and Neil quickly, is what did you think about the length of the event? Did you think the 1.5 days of conference plus half a day of unplugged was a good length? Would you like it longer? Would you like it shorter? And I'm going to, Jarian, I'm sorry, I'm going to send it back to them for just 1 second.
You're fine.
Their thoughts. Was it long enough? Was it too long? Does it need to be longer?
Daniel.
I would say that it's definitely don't make it shorter, for sure. Whether or not was long enough, or could be longer, I think depends. Like, the way that it was right then felt like the perfect amount. But if you have more sessions, then then yes, it could be longer. Whether or not it needs more sessions than like 1.5 days worth and then a half day of unplugged, I don't know the answer to that. But if there is, I would say, like, if I was organizing it, what I would do is not set how many days it's going to be, just see how many talks there possibly could be and kind of go from there. Because the one problem that I ran into with a much larger conference was that it was impossible to attend everything I wanted to attend. Whereas with EUC Unplugged, it felt like I was able to see everything I wanted to see. There was significantly less schedule conflicts where you're going to miss out on something. So yeah, that's kind of my answer.
Neil, your thoughts?
Yeah, so my thoughts on this, I have actually had a couple, or analyzed this a little bit. So I think 3 days is a sweet spot personally. You come in on a Monday, you're there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you fly out on a Friday. That's how it goes. You get, 1.5 days. I think this experience in with the extra half day for being the unconference stuff, I thought that was great. But I do think there was opportunities where I think there was more discussion that wanted to occur, but the conference is now over. So we just kind of wrapped it up.
That's good feedback. I'm coming back to you, Sean, since you posed the question.
I think that's great feedback. So that definitely gives us something to think about as we're thinking about a potential next event. So now I can pass it over to Stephen for his final thoughts.
My final thoughts, we have to keep this momentum going. We need to continue to bring the community together. We got to continue to get the vendors and the sponsors involved. We need to get people to present. We need to get people to come out to the conferences and to their local meets. Everything Sean said about the groups. And most importantly, a lot of us in the EUC space, we've known each other for years, and we see each other at a lot of these conferences. We need to put a focus on bringing in the new generation of EUC specialists. And that's one of the reasons why I was so happy to get Daniel out, is because Daniel's never attended anything like this. And I was happy that he could come in. I'm hoping that, Daniel, one day you'll present and do a talk about something. I know you've done that at our local VMUG groups. You did amazing, by the way. And if we can continue to bring in new folks to the EUC World Conference, to the world of EUC, we can, it'll just benefit everyone. More knowledge, more sharing, more people, more community. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I agree with everything with that as well. And a couple of ways too. If you're a first time presenter, there are a couple options for you. One, local groups. Like Sean was saying, if you're looking for something to keep going and to have it sooner, look at a local group. Get a use case from your environment, and present that at a local group. Smaller group. Not as much on you. Everyone's there to support you. So that's one avenue to go. Two, lightning session. We had lightning sessions at this event. We heard some feedback that they could be a tad longer, so we're taking that into account as well. But a lightning session is another great avenue as well if you're a first-time presenter. You can still get some good content out there, but not have to carry a full session. Two, if you want to step up and right away, dive both feet in to the deep end, do a full session. And then I actually had a fourth option. If you want to do a full session, but don't think you could carry it all by yourself and wanted to team up, reach out to someone else in the community. Phone a friend. That's a good way to do it as well. I remember one of my first sessions that was at a Bri Forum, and myself and Shane Kleiner, and those are 75-minute sessions. And so him and I just said, hey, we've been working on this stuff on the side, thinking on these things. And so we put that session together. Didn't go, I didn't think it went the best because we sound like two auctioneers tagged to each other during the whole session. And you can still find that out there on YouTube. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of experience, and everyone gave us good feedback and supported us. So the community is here to support you. So, if you're out there thinking about a session, wanting to do something, you just do it. Don't wait, just go for it. And the community is here to support you, whether it's to mentor, to review your session, to help you practice, to present with you. All those options on the table. I myself will throw it out there. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to help and foster new voices in the community.
And Jarian, you forgot a fifth option, which is doing a World of EUC community webinar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so there's all kinds of options. You have webinars, local groups. You have the different session styles at EUC World, the future 2025 event, whatever we were to call it when it's planned. So do that. Also, too, sign up on the website, join the Slack/Discord for that real-time community help. So all those things are out there. You can also submit a blog too. One good way to start off a session topic is to blog about something, and then that blog starts the conversation. That conversation can then turn into a session as well. So all those things are out there. So again, feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out to HQ, like Sean said, hq@worldofeuc.org. Before I do the closing here, anything else, anybody, or are we good to close out?
The one thing I would say,
Okay.
and this is probably why I've never really considered myself until recently part of the EUC space, is anytime someone says EUC, I mostly think like VDI, Citrix, Horizon, that kind of stuff. Never did I really consider Intune as being part of the EUC space. So I wonder if a focus a little bit like, hey, Intune is part of the EUC, can even help drive more people to come to the events like this, because everyone, I think, just thinks EUC equals VDI.
And that, I was sorry, just to say, so Daniel, you'll be presenting on Intune at the next one?
Well, that's the only thing you really could present on. It's just a fancy way to do installs.
Yeah, definitely do it. And, that's one thought I've had too for a long time is, when you hear the words EUC, it automatically goes to VDI, but it is a much larger space. It's device management. It's browser management's coming up into that space. It's all these things around it, because in my mind, EUC isn't just VDI, it's the last mile of computing
Yep.
and application
Yep.
delivery. Because it's all this stuff that we do in the data center is great, but how do people use it?
Yep.
Right? And somebody has to deliver that last mile, like your local telephone company delivers that last mile of internet service, or local cable company, or Google in Jarian's case.
Yeah, also too, security, AI, data management, all that kind of stuff all fits into it. And like Sean was saying, there's the last mile, there's all kinds of use cases out there. Don't just think it's just VDI. It's anything we do on this, it's cloud PC, it's laptop management, it's all that kind of stuff, device management, mobile management, all those things fit into it. So bring all those topics. And sometimes it's some people wear multiple hats and they're a jack of all trades when it comes to that. So how do you tie it all together in your environment is another way to do it. With that being said, thank you, Neil, and thank you, Daniel, for joining us on this. And it was great seeing you at EUC World Independence. Hopefully we see you at EUC World 2025. As always, Sean and Steven, it's a pleasure having you on as the co-host. I want to thank the community again for supporting us. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting us. If you are listening to this and you've been a long time Frontline Chatter listener, Frontline Chatter is now part of World of EUC. If you have not, sign up on the website, join the Slack/Discord for that real-time community help, submit for a webinar, submit a blog post, reach out to a friend. We're all here in the community to support each other. So thank you for listening to the Frontline Chatter podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.